Hi, I'm going to show you a couple tools that I use in Photoshop to make an easy collage. So here I have an image of a woman that I found online, and over here I have an image of a board game. So what I want to do is isolate this figure, isolate the board game, and then replace the board game behind the figure, and then just add a couple cool elements to make it look neat. So I'm going to start by isolating the figure from the background. Over here, I'm going to use the object selection tool. If you don't see it on your toolboard, you can go Control, click at this level, and then you'll see there's a couple different options. There's the magic wand tool, quick selection tool, object selection tool. So we're going to choose object selection tool. This is really cool. You're basically just going to roughly cover the area of what you want to isolate. You just drag it over there, and you can see it does a pretty good job of selecting this, but there are some things that aren't included, like that chunk of the foot. We want to make sure that this entire cape background is in our selection. So to edit the selection after we use the selection tool, I'm going to enter quick mask mode. So to do that, you just click Q on the keyboard, and you can click Q again to exit quick mask mode. So when you're in quick mask mode, you can see everything that is selected is in normal colors, and everything that's not selected is covered in red. So here we can really see like there's an issue here we need to cover up and an issue with the foot. So to edit the selection, you're going to start using the brush tool. You can go over here and click the brush tool, or you can just click B on your computer and you will be in the brush mode. It's easy to use the shortcuts the more you work with Photoshop because you just want to quickly be able to get around to things. So you edit it over here. When you have white selected, it removes that from the selection. And when you paint with black, it's going to add that to the selection. So I'm just going to be toggling between those two options on the figure. You can use the shortcut X to toggle between white and black. See here, every time I click X, the one in front is the color that we're currently working with. So I'm going to start with black. I'm going to start with white, and we're going to be removing this area from the selection. I'm going to make my brush bigger so I can work with this portion. To do that, you can edit the brush size up here, but I'm going to choose the bracket button on my computer. So for closed brackets, small closed brackets right next to the P makes the brush smaller. Larger closed brackets, which is 2 to the right from the P, make the brush bigger. So I'm going to hit that until the brush is big enough that I can easily cover this. And then I'll go back in with a smaller brush to kind of neaten that up. Just kind of get this area. I'll go back in the smaller. So this is just really rough. I just want to generally get the outline. And then you can also see, so the more you zoom in, I go Command plus, that helps me zoom in, Command minus would zoom out. With the object selection tool, it's also just a little bit pixelated around the edge. So you can also use the brush tool to kind of clean up that pixelation and make it smoother. So I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to clean this up. Okay, so now you can see I have a pretty decent selection. Everything that I want, you can see the colors on. Everything that I don't want shows with this red overlay. So I'm going to hit Q again to exit quick mask mode. And then once I've exited it, we're going to create a clipping mask. So down here, you can see there's some options. This is going to create a clipping mask. What a clipping mask does is it makes everything that's not selected transparent. And you can edit this in the future if you want to make it untransparent. So over here, this layer is locked. I just have to unlock this layer so that I can edit it. And then I'm going to click this here to make a clipping mask. And you can see now everything that we didn't have selected disappears. So now what I'm going to do is delete the inside of her dress here. to make this transparent as well. We could have done that with the brush tool we were just using in quick mask mode, but because it's pretty rectangular in shape, I think it's going to be easier for me to just use this polygonal lasso tool. So I'm going to click this, and this is another way of making selections, but it's just going to go between points that you make with your cursor. So I'm just going to select here and go along this, following the shape of her dress here that I want to cut out. Just all the way down. Then you connect it up here, and now you have this selected. You can see the dotted lines. Okay, so now we have this middle selected, we want to remove it. So what we're gonna do is make sure we're working in the layer mask. If we delete it from the image here, it's gonna permanently remove it from the image, which we don't want because maybe in the future we wanna bring it back. So I'm gonna make sure I've selected the layer mask. And again, like quick object selection, no, sorry. We're gonna fill it with black to remove what we don't want, and we can fill it with white to bring back what we do want. So I just want this entire thing to be filled with black, and that will make it disappear. So we're gonna go edit, fill, and the contents we're gonna change to black. We want 100% opacity. So when I go okay, it fills that portion with black in the clipping mask, which actually makes it translucent. Now we're going to escape the selection by going Command D, and that is no longer selected anymore. So now we have our model removed from the background with this portion of her dress removed, which is what I want. So I'm going to go over here and start working on the Candyland board. I'm just going to clean this up first by using the crop tool just to get rid of this background as much as I can that I don't want. So I mainly just want this portion. So once I've cropped it to the size I want, I'm going to hit enter. That completes the crop. I could edit it over here and then bring it over, but I'm just going to drag it in so we know what we're working with. So using the move tool, you can also hit V on your keyboard. We're going to press down on this and we're going to drag it up. Oh, it's locked. So we have to make sure to unlock it first. So I'm going to remove this and I'm going to just drag it up here where I can see the model. And you can't see it, but as soon as I release my keyboard, you will see it appear. So I'm just going to place it there. And I'm going to place it behind her because that's where I want it. So over here, I'm going to drag this down to place it behind her. To make it bigger, smaller, to resize it in any way, I'm going to go Command T. And now you can see it has these bars around it. So I'm going to pull those out to make it bigger to get the size I want. And decide where to place it behind her. I think it looks good right about there. So when I'm done resizing and placing it, I'm going to hit enter. And that's now placed. So what I want to do is isolate this rainbow portion from the background and keep everything from the image inside her dress here. So I think the easiest way for me to do that is I'm going to create another clipping mask for this Candyland board game. I'm going to remove the background. So what I can do, first of all, I'm going to lock this layer so I don't mess up anything with the model that I like the way it looks. So I'm going to go lock. And I'm also going to make her invisible for a second so I can just focus on the board game. So over here, if I click this eyeball, you can't see her. The layer is still there, but it's not visible to you. Click it again and it'll show back up. So I'm going to keep her invisible. I'm going to go in on this. We could use the quick object selection tool again. I'm not sure how well it'll work with this. Let's just give it a try and see what this is picking up on to select. Yeah, you can see it doesn't really know what to select because there's not a big contrast. It doesn't know what the object is we're trying to select for. So that didn't really work. I could use the polygonal lasso tool and follow it like I did for her bodice, but I think it might just be easiest for me to go in with the brush tool. So I'm going to press Q. And nothing is red right now. So I'll start with this and I will select the board game using the polygonal lasso tool like we did for her dress. This is just going to give me an initial selection to work with. Now when I hit Q, you can see what we don't want is red. So I'm going to go in with the brush tool. And I'm just going to start to edit this to remove the background. I'm going to follow the board game so I can isolate for this rainbow portion, which I do want. Okay, so I've selected the rainbow Candyland sort of trail here. It doesn't need to be perfect. I can always clean it up after I make the clipping mask, but I'm going to hit Q again. Hit Q again, and then you can see our selection there. So let's just go ahead and make a clipping mask and see what we get. So I'm going to hit here. Okay, and so we still have stuff that we can clean up a lot over there. So I'm going to use the brush tool, making sure that we're in the mask and not on the actual board game. Using the brush, I'm going to make it bigger. And so we want one of these to be white and one of them to be black. So you can see when I'm using the black, it erases that. So I'm just going to go through and do some more erasing. I don't care so much about the center because I'm actually going to pull the center back in so that her dress is entirely filled in. I just want to get rid of all this stuff on the outside, which I don't want. Okay. Let's try that. Now we'll toggle her visibility and see what it looks like. Okay, so I think on the outside, there's still some things here I can see that I don't want, but it looks pretty good where the board game is removed from beyond her figure. So now we're going to actually want to fill this all back in. It was just easier for me to remove it all, and so we can just fill it in solidly now instead of worrying about where exactly the line of when we want to stop removing is. So over here, I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool, still working in the clipping mask. I'm just going to select beyond, slightly beyond this region where we're going to start seeing it again. So now I have this selected on the clipping mask for the Candyland board game. And we're going to go fill, so edit, fill. We're going to fill it with white this time because we want to make that part visible instead of invisible. So I'm going to select white, opacity 100%, go OK, and you can see it automatically places it back in. So now we have our model with the Candyland board game. The background is transparent because you can see the checkers here. So I'm going to add a background layer. To add a new layer, you go down here and hit this one that says new layer. There's a couple different ways to add a layer, but this is the easiest for me. I click there and you can see our layer here. So I'm going to pull it so it's behind everything. And I'm going to call it background. I'm going to rename these. You just double click on the layer, and then it should give you an option there to rename it. This one is, let's call it game, and we're going to call this one figure. So background, I'm just going to fill it with white. So when I have this layer selected, I'm going to go edit, fill, contents white, opacity 100%. And now you can see the background is white. So it's looking pretty good. We could add some more things to make this a more visually interesting collage. We could play around with putting different elements in. We could add a border. What I like to do is play with a little bit of color, because you can see there's a lot of color in here. And I'm going to add that to the figure. So I'm going to select the figure, unlock. Well, actually, let's lock these other ones so we don't mess with them. Okay. For the figure, we're selecting the actual figure, not the clipping mask. If I make edits in the clipping mask, it's only going to affect what I can see. When I want to actually add colors, I'm going to be working with the actual layer. I'm going to load a selection, and this is going to, I think, figure transparency. No. Select, load selection. Let's go figure mask. And now you can see it selected the model, which is important. Using the brush tool over here, what I want to do is just add a splotch of color to only the figure. If I didn't have that selected, it would be adding the color to the figure as well as the background, and meaning that the brush is touching. But when you have something selected, the brush tool is only going to work within what's selected. So using the eyedropper tool, I'm going to pick this color here, blue, and that's a pretty color. To get to the eyedropper tool, you can press I, or you can go over here, which has the option tool. So I'm going to go back to brush tool using B, and let's just add a splotch of color, see how it looks. All right, that's kind of cool. I like how it's a little bit off center. Maybe we'll just add one more up here too. You can edit the size of the brush. Let me try right there. Yeah, I kind of like that. I can also Control Z, add it again in a different place to see. Maybe I like that more, a little bit more covered up. I'm gonna go back to eyedropper. Maybe we'll add some in orange. Not loving that color of orange. I'm gonna go in here and just try to get a nice color of orange that I like a bit more. I'm not sure how well that's gonna look. Maybe we will do purple instead. Yeah, I think that's a nice color. So again, going back to brush, I'm gonna make this one smaller. And it's right there. Okay, so now I'm gonna hit Command D to remove the selection. And you can see we just have color blocking only within what was selected. So that's just some basic tools that you can use to create a cute little collage using different elements and layers and clipping masks to select what you don't want, select what you do want, make what you don't want invisible. Yeah, thanks so much for watching.